popular Kansas cheerleader is raped and tortured to death.
Jody was the epitome of the innocent victim.
Investigators follow footprints to catch a killer.
You can't walk somewhere without leaving something behind.
And help make their case with a single arm hair found in a car submerged underwater for 4 days.
To find that arm hair was miraculous.
In every detective's career, one case stands out as unforgettable. Crime scenes so bizarre they defy logic, and criminal minds so conniving they defy understanding. To get to the truth, it takes extreme forensics. Friday, January 5th, 2007. Arkansas City, Kansas, a small town of about 12,000 people near the Oklahoma border.
Small enough you know a lot of people, but you don't know everybody.
19-year-old Jody Sanderholm lives with her parents and attends Cowley College across town. A high school valedictorian, Jody is outgoing and smart with plenty of friends and a passion for dance, a talent she has developed as a member of the Cowley College Tigerettes. Each day after dance practice, Jody follows a predictable routine.
When she came home, she'd always pick up the mail because it would be on the way home. She'd bring it in, throw it on the bar, get her lunch, take a shower.
Jody's mother, Cindy, checks in daily with her daughter right after she arrives home, around 12 p.m.
She didn't answer the phone, so I thought, okay, she's probably still in the shower. So I waited, 5 minutes. Called her again, no answer. She didn't call me back.
Jody's sister Jennifer also tries to make contact. She's expecting a baby any day now, and Jody would never ignore her call.
She'd answer my phone call right away because Jody would think it was me calling saying I was in labor, and I tried to call and she didn't answer. I waited a few minutes and called back and she didn't answer again.
I just kept trying to reassure Cindy that everything was all right, and we'd laugh about it in a couple hours. It was all going to be okay.
But Cindy is still worried. She decides to leave work early.
I noticed when I got home, her car wasn't there. There was no mail on the counter. Jody? Jody? Jody?
Cindy checks with Jody's friends. They say they haven't seen her since she left dance practice around 11:45 a.m.
Have you seen Jody?
And something else. Jody didn't show up for a meeting 3 hours later.
Everybody just kept telling me she's okay, and I kept saying, no, she's not, because I haven't heard from her.
I'm home. Her husband, Brian, arrives home from work. And around 6 p.m., the Sanderholms call police.
Do everything we can.
Arkansas City Police Chief Sean Wallace offers a sympathetic ear. Wallace is a 17-year veteran of the force, but he's been running the department for only 3 weeks. And this call isn't business as usual. It's personal.
One of my 4 sons graduated with Jody Sanderholm. I watched the Sanderholm children grow up.
Chief Wallace dispatches an officer to the home, but at this point, he hopes it's just a misunderstanding.
You're thinking, well, they're just off schedule. They haven't called home like they should.
Police ask if Jody has a boyfriend. Turns out she does. His name is David Meringer, and he's out of town visiting his brother in Dallas.
The first thing we were hopeful of is, well, maybe she went to meet him, or maybe they arranged to go to Dallas together.
Police track David down in Texas. He says he hasn't seen or heard from Jody since yesterday and agrees to return to Arkansas City right away. Meanwhile, news of Jody's disappearance spreads quickly through police ranks. Lieutenant Mark McCaslin, also a veteran of the force, joins the investigation.
I called the chief and told him that if I was needed or anything, that I was more than available and wanted to come in and help to see what I could do.
By that evening, a full-scale search of the area is underway.
Several officers from New York City Police Department, surrounding agencies, drove every city street, alleyway in the city of Arkansas City looking for her car.
We were looking in ditches and drop-offs, but we were not finding her or her vehicle.
Like a suicide attempt.
Maybe Jody's friends on the Tigerettes dance team know something.
Good afternoon, ladies. Could we hold word with you for a minute?
Yeah.
Investigators ask if they remember seeing anyone suspicious, and the name Justin Thurber pops up. He's a little creepy, they say, adding that he would often just hang around the campus.
We began to get these stories of how Justin Thurber would follow them around the parking lot at the dance line. There's some groupies, they will watch the dance line practice.
Justin Thurber is 23, works at a local sandwich shop, and he's no stranger to police.
He was just a petty criminal that always seemed to pop up in situations and just become kind of an annoyance for us. We'd arrested him a few times, but nothing extremely violent or nothing extremely serious.
10 p.m., some 10 hours since Jody was last seen, and still there's no sign of her or her car. A black Dodge Stratus. With the clock ticking, an officer is sent to interview Justin Thurber. Like Jody, Justin lives at home with his parents.
Where were you?
He just off the cuff asked Justin what he'd been doing that night. And Justin starts putting himself east of town, near the state lake, having some car trouble.
Thurber claims he and 3 of his friends were heading out of town on a road trip. He says their car veered off the road near the Cowley County State Fishing Lake and became mired in mud.
And he had to call his dad to pick him up, and he got muddy, etc., etc.
And what about Thurber's 3 friends, the ones allegedly riding with him in the car? What do they have to say? Investigators are eager to track them down to get their stories. Meanwhile, the Sanderholm's agonizing ordeal continues well into the night, with no word from Jody.
We were just sitting around waiting. That's all there was to do. I tried to hope that everything was okay, but I knew deep down something bad had happened.
Jody's father decides to take matters into his own hands.
He waited until about 2:30 or 3 and started calling the TV stations in Wichita to put the word out that our daughter was missing.
In Ark City, you can miss her picture as missing person flyers are now on every corner. Everyone working desperately to find 19-year-old Jody Sanderholm.
Special Agent David Folletti with the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, or KBI, catches an early report on TV.
I had not worked with Ark City that much, so I contacted Chief Sean Wallace to see if I could be of assistance.
And I said, yeah, we could use all the help we can get.
Saturday, January 6th, 2007. Chief Wallace meets with Agent Folletti and Lieutenant McCaslin. There's no time to waste.
We really need to step things up more than we already had to try to find her or find out where she might have went.
While choppers search from the sky, Special Agent Folletti pounds the pavement, tracking down Justin Thurber's 3 friends, Jason Carr, Paul Dennison, and Stuart Engel. They, too, are familiar to police.
Several of the alibis that Justin gave as being with that night were somewhat known to law enforcement.
Carr, Dennison, and Engel are brought in for questioning. All 3 deny being in Thurber's car. And they say they have no knowledge of Jody Sanderholm's whereabouts.
No, not really.
Most of the people that we interviewed around that Justin gave us names for were pretty upset that he had dropped their name and completely denied that they were with Justin that day.
Somebody is lying. The question is, who? Justin Thurber or his 3 friends? And what about Jody's boyfriend? Had he leveled with police about being in Texas 24 hours earlier, around the time Jody disappeared?
We felt that him being out of town was somewhat suspicious, being that Jody was missing. During these investigations, we have to rule out everybody.
Now, nearly 24 hours into the investigation, there is still no sign of Jody or her vehicle, despite a massive search.
None of the searches through the air or the ground turned up Jody's whereabouts.
Coming up, 1 missing woman and 5 possible suspects. Can forensic experts find some answers in a pair of old sneakers? Saturday, January 6, 2007, 1 p.m. 19-year-old college student Jody Sanderholm has been missing from the small Kansas community of Arkansas City for more than 24 hours. The entire town is on edge, and police are feeling the heat.
At one point in time, every person in the police department in Ark City had something to do with the case.
As the hours went by, we really felt that something had happened to her.
Investigators have their eye on a local bad boy named Justin Thurber and 3 of his friends.
Justin had told Lieutenant Burr that he had gone on a road trip with some friends, and at some point the vehicle got stuck. He separated from those friends and walked to a point where he could get cell phone connection with his father, who came and picked him up.
But Thurber's friends have denied even seeing him that day. Also on police radar is Jody's boyfriend, 20-year-old David Merringer. David is now home from Dallas, where he claims he had been for the past 2 days.
More often than not, it's somebody that is a loved one or a very close one to the victim. It's the nature of criminal activity.
Special Agent Folletti asks David to come into the station house for questioning.
He was quite a bit upset. He had not talked to her. He couldn't find her.
I can't even begin to think. She just, here's a tissue.
But will his alibi hold up? Agent Folletti subpoenas cell phone and credit card records to see if David was, in fact, in Dallas on Friday, the day Jody disappeared.
We were able to use the cell phones to show that he was not hitting any of the towers in the Cali County area during the time frame that Jody became missing.
And credit card records confirm David was nowhere near Arkansas City the previous day.
We were able to find that he had used a credit card in Texas as well as in Oklahoma when he was on his way back, and that kind of gives us a date and time stamp where he was at during that time frame. We were able to completely clear her boyfriend of having anything to do with her disappearance.
With Jody's boyfriend scratched from the list of possible suspects, Chief Wallace and his team dig deeper into Justin Thurber's background.
One of the standard investigative methods is to talk to people that are close to them.
Police locate Thurber's ex-girlfriend, and she has a disturbing story to tell.
Lieutenant Scott drove Justin Thurber's ex-girlfriend around eastern Cali County at her insistence, because she informed him that was an area of the county that he loved to go.
As Lieutenant Scott heads into the Kaw wildlife area, Thurber's ex-girlfriend points out a small boat dock near the Oklahoma-Kansas state line. She says it was one of Thurber's favorite spots, but it's what she says next that stops investigators cold.
He's told me that he could drop a body with it never being found.
And she also told Lieutenant Scott that Justin had made the off-the-cuff comment as they were driving around one day in that area that he could kill somebody and get rid of their body out there in the Kaw wildlife area, and no one would ever find their body.
The Kaw wildlife area covers 4,300 acres of rugged terrain.
We had officers go down and take a look in these areas where Justin's ex-girlfriend told us about.
Statements like that, of course, made us start looking at him even closer. That now we have someone who's made statements about abduction and murder.
While the search for answers gets underway at the wildlife area, one more name is eliminated from the suspect list: Jason Carr. His alibi, a physical therapy appointment.
We were able to speak with that physical therapist and also get records showing that individual was there.
And what about the other 2 friends that Justin Thurber claimed were with him when his car got stuck? Turns out they are also telling the truth.
One was actually out of town down in Texas. We were able to show that. And the other was actually at work that day and had gone to the courthouse to get a marriage certificate. So we were able to get that information to show his whereabouts on that day as well.
This leaves only one person on police radar: Justin Thurber.
It just made it stronger that Justin was the only person involved in this crime and did it alone.
But with no body and no solid evidence that any crime has been committed, investigators take another hard look at what they do know.
The last location that we can confirm that Jody was at prior to her abduction was in front of the Cowley County Community College auditorium where she had parked her car on the morning of the 5th.
That was about 10 a.m. on Friday. Authorities request security tapes from Cowley College, looking for images of Thurber's blue Cadillac, and what they see is frightening.
Jody was driving to school on January the 5th that morning, and a blue Cadillac matching Justin's was right behind her.
But that's not the only time Thurber's vehicle shows up on the security tapes.
On several different occasions, we were able to view that his car was in the area of the Cowley County Community College, not only on that day, but days prior to.
Everybody's gut feeling was leading us to the fact that we knew that he had something to do with Jody's disappearance, and we wanted him off the street.
But do they have enough for an arrest?
Although a lot of the statements and evidence was pointing towards Justin as a suspect to Jody's disappearance, we didn't have probable cause to arrest him for that.
Thurber is actually out on bond after being arrested for petty theft.
The bondsman at that time made the decision that he was going to revoke his bond from that previous arrest. I believe in his interest to get away from the case and the person,
allowing police to bring him into custody. Police confront Thurber on his way home from a bingo game. His mother and sister are also in the car. He is arrested without incident.
He really didn't put up a fight or, become belligerent or anything like that.
While Thurber is processed at the station and a DNA sample taken, a second team of investigators shows up at Thurber's home, armed with a search warrant.
The reason why we did it simultaneously is so that a cell phone call couldn't be made to get rid of evidence or hide something.
At the house, Lieutenant McCaslin first questions Thurber's father, who confirms his son's story.
He stated that he had picked him up out by the Cowley County State Fishing Lake, that he had been stranded out there with some friends and just needed a ride back.
But investigators know there were no friends at the scene. Thurber must have lied to his father. And there's much more to the story.
He stated that after he had picked up Justin out on Highway 166 and brought him home, that Justin had taken a shower, started laundering his clothes, and that he had helped Justin clean his shoes of the mud that were on him when he picked him up.
It could be a crippling blow to the investigation.
We were definitely concerned that at that point, some good trace evidence had been lost.
Police search Thurber's home and confiscate a number of items, including a pair of wet sneakers sitting on a towel by the door.
We took several items from the residence, including Justin Thurber's clothing and his tennis shoes.
Police also seize Thurber's cell phone and impound his blue Cadillac. The vehicle is sent to the crime lab along with the rest of the evidence.
You keep working as much as you can, as much as you physically can, until you bring that investigation to fruition and get some answers for the family, and better yet, some justice for the family.
But there's still no sign of Jody Sanderholm, and unless she turns up, investigators will have a tough time her disappearance on Justin Thurber. Coming up, can expert trackers using only their eyes and their instincts locate Jody's trail in over 4,000 acres of wilderness? Every day, 2,100 people are reported missing in the United States. 83% are under the age of 21. Sunday, January 7th, 2007. Investigators speculate that 23-year-old local Justin Thurber has something to do with college student Jody Sanderholm's disappearance. Detectives continue to search his hangout at the Caw Wildlife Area, rugged territory covering more than 4,000 acres.
Our goal ultimately was to find Jody, in hopes that she's alive. But as the days pass, those hopes kind of fade.
Under intense questioning, Thurber doesn't crack.
Did you have anything to do with Jody's disappearance?
Got any knowledge? Do I have any?
Yeah, do you?
No.
Okay. Did you have anything to do with her death or cause her death? No. Because we don't know if she's dead or not.
No.
We didn't know if she was dead or alive or somewhere else. Our hopes were that he could tell us where she was at, tell us what he had done, but he denied any wrongdoing and said that he had not been around her at all.
Though investigators believe he's lying, Thurber sticks to his story.
He's pretty much playing a game. Every time we would get close to getting Justin to give us some information, either he would again ask for an attorney or continue telling untruthful stories about where he was at on the night of the 5th.
I was there, but not around 10.
Meanwhile, investigators examine the sneakers, clothing, and cell phone removed from Thurber's home. But no useful trace evidence is recovered.
It was a disappointment, but being that they had been washed, we weren't really surprised.
Police also searched Thurber's car inside and out. Nothing there either. Meanwhile, the search for clues continues at both the Caw Wildlife Area and in town. Finally, the effort pays off.
There was one footprint that was found of interest just directly across the street from the Sanderholm's residence.
Had Justin Thurber followed Jody home after dance practice? Even if Thurber's sneakers have been washed, it might be possible to match them to the impression found in the dirt across the street from the Sanderholms. Then, more encouraging news. Officers searching the area Thurber's ex-girlfriend had pointed out find more shoe prints that also look like they could be from a pair of sneakers.
The first footprint that was found believed to be Justin Thurber's was right down by the state line, which was about a quarter mile south of the boat dock.
The investigation catches fire. But searching the vast 4,300-acre terrain will require the help of some experts in human tracking.
Lieutenant McCaslin paged me on Sunday morning and asked me to activate the tracking team to come help with this missing person case.
Brothers Ron and John Cannon are firefighters who became trained in the art and science of tracking in their off time.
You can't walk somewhere without leaving something behind.
Armed with a mirror, flashlight, and flags to mark any evidence they uncover. The Cannon brothers meet Lieutenant McCaslin at the boat dock. The team is provided with a photocopy and measurements of Thurber's sneakers.
The trackers began to follow the shoe impressions down a dirt road and into the wooded area in the Caw Wildlife Area.
And then tracker John Cannon notices a very different pattern.
Right next to the subject's shoe, I saw a smaller print that we presumed was probably Miss Sanderholm. It was a very faint track made by flip-flop.
This matches reports that Jody was wearing flip-flops when she was last seen. Trackers locate 3 more tracks, similar in size and shape.
And at one point down this path, the flip-flops stopped and Justin's shoes continued down the path.
I felt like where her 4 tracks were, she had refused to go down that old road, and he picked her up and carried her from that point. That was my belief. We felt like at all times that she was down there somewhere.
The search now takes on even more urgency.
We began to track the tennis shoe west down an access road on the state line, and that set of tracks led to an area near the river.
But so far, the search for Jody's body has come up empty.
It was just such a wide open area there that even with their expertise of focusing it in there, we didn't know where it was going to end up.
But the trackers have found several more shoe prints that appear to match the others, over 70 in all. But with darkness falling, investigators decide to call it a day.
We were burned out to the point where we were just having a lot of trouble seeing sign. We called it off until the next morning.
On the drive home, trackers Ron Cannon and Richard Tatum approached the spot where Thurber said his father picked him up the day Jody went missing. On a hunch, Cannon decides to pull over.
That put us pretty close to the Cali County State Fishing Lake, and we decided that we would go back and just do a quick look at the area and see if we could find any evidence pertinent to the case. As I approached the restroom area, one thing caught my eye was what we call dirt transfer on a concrete pad at the restroom itself.
Ron cautiously moves inside.
As I approached the toilet in the woman's restroom, I looked into the basin of the toilet and noticed what appeared to be someone's mail, and upon looking better, I could tell that it was Brian and Cindy Sanderholm's mail in the bottom of the toilet.
Careful not to disturb the evidence, he immediately calls Lieutenant McCaslin.
Hello.
I was almost overcome by emotion because I knew that we had found some very important information that would be useful to law enforcement.
Within minutes, Lieutenant McCaslin, Chief Wallace, and Special Agent Folletti are at the scene. Investigators examine the other toilets and check out the septic tank. They find a flip-flop and what looks like a jacket.
And when investigators removed that item that I saw that was orange, it indeed was Jody's tigerette jacket. When that happened, the hair on the back of my neck stood up because I knew at that point that Jody was probably not alive.
Coming up, can a team of sonar specialists help police locate a key piece of evidence in what is now a full-scale murder investigation? January 8th, 2007. 3 days after the disappearance of 19-year-old Jody Sanderholm, investigators uncovered disturbing evidence pointing to her murder. And police believe they know who committed the crime, Justin Thurber. But to prove it, they need to find Jody's body.
Our investigation had changed from being a search for Jody to the recovery of Jody's body.
Sobering news Chief Wallace must now share with Jody's parents.
I told them the evidence that we had discovered, and as delicately as I could, that they probably should prepare themselves that Jody was not coming home alive, that when we found her, she was going to be deceased.
I knew right then and there she was dead. It was just a gut feeling that I had that if her clothes were there and she wasn't with them, she was somewhere else and she was gone.
Investigators return to a restroom near the state fishing lake where several of Jody's personal items have been discovered.
They suited up a fire department guy who actually went down in the toilet and was able to clearly look at everything to make sure that we didn't miss anything. And we really found a lot of evidence out of the toilet,
including Jody's wallet, dance shoes, and floor mats that appear to be from her car. Those items, along with the mail, tigerette jacket, and flip-flop found the night before, are bagged and sent to the Kansas Bureau of Investigation Crime Lab in Topeka for examination.
I didn't have high hopes for it, but you have to send everything.
Police are convinced Jody's car is somewhere in the lake. They contact Tim Miller of Texas EcuSearch, a volunteer search and rescue organization that specializes in finding missing persons.
We got called by a detective in Ark City on Jody Sanderholm. He gave me some of the details on it and said, we understand that you've got some resources that may be able to help. And I said, we'll be there in the morning.
Using specialized sonar equipment, EcuSearch volunteers are often able to locate hidden objects underwater when all other efforts have failed.
We just wanted to find all the evidence possible to bring Jody some justice, bring the case to an end.
While EcuSearch owner Tim Miller mobilizes his team, Special Agent Folletti contacts forensic scientist and KBI colleague Steve Cook to examine shoe prints found 10 miles away at the wildlife area. Cook is one of approximately 75 internationally certified footwear examiners.
And I just look at the evidence in the case, and the evidence speaks to us. The state line scene was a very large crime scene. It was one of the largest I've ever been associated with. This was one of my most challenging crime scenes.
Cook examines what appear to be Thurber's shoe prints, the ones leading into the woods, and the four prints that appear to match Jody's sandals.
I focused on the design features, the herringbone patterns, the horizontal lines, the vertical lines.
Then Cook makes casts of both sets of shoe prints. But before heading to the lab for the second phase of his analysis, Cook stops off in town to take one more cast.
I was asked if I could go to the victim's house. They thought they had a footwear impression across the street from the victim's house.
The investigation is now running on several parallel tracks and building momentum. Over at the crime lab, technicians are able to lift a latent fingerprint of Jody Sanderholm's from a piece of mail recovered from the toilet.
Told us that Jody made it home, at least to the end of her road where her mailboxes were, and that's where we believe she was abducted, was between there and her home.
It's helpful evidence, but investigators still need to definitively link Justin Thurber to the crime, and they're counting on Steve Cook to do just that. Cook compares shoe impressions to Justin Thurber's sneaker. He begins with the impression taken from near the Sanderholm residence. After careful examination, Cook has his answer. It's a match.
My conclusion was that the impression corresponded in design features to the suspect's shoes, Justin Thurber's. The herringbone pattern, the horizontal lines, the vertical lines did correspond to those test impressions.
Investigators can now put Justin Thurber at the very spot where they believe Jody Sanderholm was abducted. And what about the other shoe prints, the ones found in the wooded area? Cook rolls up his sleeves again, and once again, he hits forensic gold.
At the state line scene, there were approximately 50 footwear impressions that corresponded in somehow to Justin Thurber's shoes. There were 4 that corresponded to the victim's shoes, Jody Sanderholm.
But the entire case may be riding on crucial evidence investigators do not have, at least not yet.
We needed to find Jody. We needed to find her car. Justin Thurber was not admitting anything.
No, I don't know.
Coming up, can a tiny hair that's been submerged underwater help nail a murderer? Footwear impression evidence is the world's oldest forensic science. The word investigate comes from the Latin word for footprint. January 9th, 2007. Evidence continues to mount connecting Justin Thurber to the disappearance and probable murder of 19-year-old Jody Sanderholm. Police believe that Jody's remains are somewhere in the Caw Wildlife Area, or 12 miles away in the State Fishing Lake. But if they can't find Jody's body or her car, Thurber just might get away with murder. And with bad weather in the forecast, there's no time to waste.
If we didn't find her, that the storm moved in, it would be too late, we'd lose evidence, we needed to speed the process up.
As dark clouds gather, the search for Jody's body intensifies. It is here at the wildlife area where one piece of the investigation comes to a sudden end.
One of the trackers told me that he was going to look at some disturbance that he could see off to the side. He stepped off and I continued to look forward, just kind of scanning the area, and he made the statement to me that I have her. And I turned to him and asked him what he meant, and he said, I have her. I can see her hand sticking out from underneath the wood. And at that point it all sunk in.
Lieutenant McCaslin cautiously approaches the area. He sees a woodpile with what appears to be fingers sticking out from beneath it.
We had to stop for a minute, let our emotions calm down, and I got on the phone and called Chief Wallace. Told him that I think I gave him the worst news I could ever deliver to somebody.
The first thing they saw was her hand sticking out of that wood as if to say, here I am. Please find me and bring me justice. And I've heard several investigators describe it that way.
Jody is nude, a pile of branches and sticks covering her body. Deep bruises suggest she had been severely beaten.
I'll never understand how another human being can do that to a fellow human being. It was shocking to the most seasoned police officer.
Investigators processed the scene, then quickly removed Jody's body.
I knew that there was a possible sexual assault, just judging from Justin's past. So I wanted to get her into an area to where we could get her to the autopsy as soon as possible, because we're dealing with about a 72-hour period where DNA starts to degrade.
While the coroner tends to Jody's body, the EcuSearch team arrives to search for Jody's car. For owner Tim Miller, this is much more than a job. It's his mission. Tim's own daughter Laura was abducted and murdered back in 1984.
I made a promise to God and a promise to Laura I'd never leave another family alone.
Miller is joined by colleagues Dennis and Tammy Waters. The Waters boat is equipped with the latest high-tech sonar scanning system.
We went down, set our equipment up on the boat, and my wife backed us into the water, and as the boat cleared the boat trailer, the car appeared in our left-hand image, side of the image. There was absolutely no doubt what I was seeing when it popped up on the screen. We had it, just that quick.
It's a car, all right, a black Dodge Stratus, and the license plate confirms it's Jody's car.
We removed the car from the lake, and it was transported to the Arkansas City Police Department for processing.
The vehicle has been immersed in the lake for 4 days, so finding any evidence is a long shot.
The pressure from the water caused the sunroof to pop open, so the car had actually been full of water. You never, ever rule out where evidence could be.
Investigators take tape lifts of the car seats.
It's very painstaking. I mean, there's thousands of hairs and different fibers on these tape lifts, and those have to be separated out.
But it's worth it. A small piece of hair is found, and DNA tests later confirm it belongs to Justin Thurber.
I was somewhat amazed that they were able to find such a small piece of evidence on a car that had been submerged for several days.
To find that arm hair was miraculous in and of itself, and then to be able to get mitochondrial DNA was beyond anything we could have hoped for.
Meanwhile, at the coroner's office, Jody's body is officially identified. Records. And Chief Wallace delivers the unspeakable news no parent is prepared to hear.
Even after they told us that they found Jody's body, I still hoped. I still hoped that some bizarre circumstance was going to come up and she was going to come walking through the door.
The autopsy reveals the cause of death as strangulation, with blunt force trauma to the head as a contributing factor.
When she was struck so hard that it turned her head so violently that it actually tore an artery in her neck.
There is also evidence of sexual assault, and DNA tests later done on skin found under Jody's fingernails proves it belongs to Justin Thurber.
The state argued that Miss Sanderholm was basically tortured at the time of her death. Based on the amount of time that it took to strangle her, that she was taken to a remote area, we felt that it was an extremely cruel, heinous, and atrocious murder.
Jody was the epitome of the innocent victim. I mean, she had everything going for her life. For this monster to come and take it all away from her and her family is pure evil.
There was absolutely no doubt in my mind, once we got the first bit of scientific evidence back, that we had the right guy.
And still, the evidence continues to pile up when analysis of Thurber's cell phone records finally comes in.
We were able to show that Mr. Thurber was around the Cowley County State Fishing Lake and around the Call Wildlife area at relevant times in this investigation.
What we believe happened that day, based on the evidence, is that Jody left dance line practice, that Justin Thurber followed her to the area of her home, that she got the mail from a mailbox, and when she pulled into her driveway, he confronted her and forced her into her own vehicle and drove her away from her home east on US 166 out into the Call Wildlife area. and where he ultimately raped her, tortured her, and murdered her, disposing of her body there by the boat dock under that wood, and then disposing of her car in the state lake. Then he called his dad to have him pick him up and bring him home, and the next day he was playing bingo.
Because of the brutality of the crimes against Jody Sanderholm, the prosecutor throws the book at Justin Thurber. Thurber is charged with capital murder, with the aggravating factors of attempted rape and aggravated criminal sodomy. He's also charged with aggravated kidnapping. After a series of delays and legal maneuvering, Justin Thurber is finally brought to trial on February 2nd, 2009.
I will never forget this case. It really was one of those cases that it still wakes me up at night.
The Sanderholms were adamant that they wanted him to receive the death penalty.
The prosecutor agrees, calling more than 60 witnesses and laying out a mountain of forensic evidence. Shoe prints that link Justin Thurber to Jody's home and the crime scene, DNA evidence, and video surveillance tapes.
And because of the scientific evidence, we were able to rebut almost every single thing that Mr. Thurber asserted he had done on the day that Jody went missing.
The trial lasts 7 days, but the jury is out for only 3.5 hours.
It was very hard to sit there and look at him knowing he knew exactly what he did to her, and he was trying to act all innocent.
Their verdict was that he was guilty of capital murder with the aggravating factors of both attempted rape and aggravated criminal sodomy.
Guilty on all counts. Jurors recommend the death penalty. And on March 20th, 2009, the judge sentences Justin Thurber to die by lethal injection. The appeals process could take years.
At the El Dorado Correctional Facility here in Kansas, he's in a cell for 23 hours a day. He's allowed 1 hour out by himself. He does not have any human contact that I'm aware of, at least no face-to-face human contact with anyone.
I was absolutely satisfied with the sentence. It kind of renewed my faith in the system.
The next time I see him, I hope it's when they put him to death.
Without those forensic laboratories doing their work and the technicians doing their work, it may not have turned out the way that it did turn out and should have turned out.
I truly believe, based on the violence of this crime, that if we had not caught Justin Thurber would have killed again.
In the wake of their ordeal, Jody's parents pushed for tougher stalking laws. And on July 1st, 2008, Jody's Law went into effect in Kansas, allowing law enforcement to intervene earlier in stalking cases. It's the one bright light in an otherwise dark, heart-wrenching case. One this police chief will never forget.
I will retire with this being the landmark case of my career. There won't be another one like it. And God, at least I pray there'll never be another one like it.